Hello everyone, in this video I would like to briefly discuss an event that took place amongst the UN General Assembly. And what I'm referring to is the vote that recently happened, I believe on the 14th of December, so several days ago, in which the nations individually voted to adopt towards and I quote, towards a new international economic order. Now, I would like to speak about this vote because I think it's very important for us to take this in, especially if you are indeed an American, and I'll get into that in just a second. But this is also mostly a symbolic sort of event, but it really shows you the sentiment of the rest of the world. And it's important to really come to terms with this as an American because our mass media likes to present the world, of course, through the lens of the imperialists, of the profit-driven profiteers that actually run our country and own our government and all the rest of it. And they give us such a vision that obscures us so far from reality. And that, of course, adds to the very, very potent propaganda that we as Americans face in this country on a daily basis. So this vote to adopt towards a new international economic order, they call it the NIEO. It won by a vote of 123 to 50. Now, once again, this isn't something that just happened. This has been going on for almost nearly 50 years now. This was first established back in 1974. And it's, like I said, a vision that has never been actually put in place because of the forces that oppose it. And let's get into that. But let's firstly start, before we get into who opposes it, let's start with who supports such a vision. And before I do that, I want to quickly remind you, with the war in Ukraine going on right now involving Russia, and of course, as a result, NATO using this war as a proxy in order to weaken Russia and further promote or further advance their own aims, they have been saying things like, this war is important for Ukraine to win, and, by definition, NATO to win, because we need to uphold, and I quote, the rules-based international order. We've seen American politicians say this. We've seen General Mark Milley, who's a very prominent military figure in the U.S. military, say this. We've seen Joe Biden say things like this. We need to uphold the rules-based international order. Now, one would ask themselves upon hearing such a statement, what are these rules? One would, or should at the very least, greatly question the vocabulary when they utter such remarks, like we need to uphold a rules-based international order. So just keep that in mind. But as it pertains to this General Assembly vote towards adopting a new international economic order, I want to go just very briefly on who was for this and who was against it. Now, I'm not going to go over every single state, but I do want to throw out some things that I do think is relevant. And then this should really paint the picture for you for how this entire thing has been spelling out over these past almost 50 years now. So those who were for it, we have, here we go, Afghanistan, Algeria, Bahamas, Bahrain, Belarus, Bolivia, Brazil. We have China. We have India, Cuba, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, Ethiopia, Haiti, Honduras, Jamaica. Once again, these are places that voted in favor of this resolution. Pakistan, Peru, Saudi Arabia. I think you get the picture here, okay? And notably there, if you couldn't kind of gather from the names, a lot of those states there are virtually widely known to be places that the U.S. has completely decimated with their military, okay, and destroyed. Afghanistan being one, Iraq being another, and we just go down the line, and maybe not with the military, but through economic means, such as the Cuban blockade or the sanctions against Venezuela and whoever else, Nicaragua, insert whosever name you believe is relevant. But let's go over who was against this resolution. And you won't be surprised. Australia, Austria, Belgium, Estonia, of course, Canada, the United States, Finland, France, these NATO satellites, Georgia, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Israel, Italy. This stuff shouldn't surprise you. Japan, of course, New Zealand, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Sweden, Switzerland, Spain, and that's pretty much the majority of those. Oh, my bad. I left out a really big important one here. Ukraine and the UK. So basically, all of the US's satellites and their member states and their NATO allies or whatever, of course, voted with them, of course, against this resolution. But another very important thing that I would like to show you is a map basically showing us how this vote went down. And this is key because it shows us that the majority of the world, I mean, if you don't want to go off the vote, we'll go off the lay of the land here. The vote was 123 to 50, with the 123 being those in favor. The majority of the world is for this, and I quote, new international economic order. So this is a picture that basically shows us a depiction of how the vote went down. So we see in the East, this is vastly popular, of course, with the exception of Japan there. And basically, it's the West and their allies against the global South, Latin America, and the East. And it's what we've been seeing. And this is why I think this is important because, like I said, the propaganda here in America likes to skew the picture here. And, basically, our media would like to tell us that the American way is the way, it's the perfect way, and the rest of the world agrees with us. Well, one of the prime examples of how the rest of the world doesn't agree with us is their stance on the war in Ukraine. They don't think this is some holy war fought between good and evil, and we must side with the people of Ukraine and somehow get rid of Vladimir Putin and his regime. No, they either agree that Russia has adequate and serious grievances, or they take more of a neutral stance and think that the violence should stop, but they see both sides of the situation in some sort. Needless to say, though, their opinions on the matter differ from the people that lead the US and their military and NATO as a result. But this is something, this sentiment of creating a new international economic order, is something that the US, along with their allies, have been fighting against for such a very long time. And in this fight that the US has been staging against, most notably against their arch nemesis, the rising power that is the People's Republic of China. China is known for their Belt and Road Initiative and in helping out a lot of these countries that support this new international economic order in some form or fashion. And it's this spreading of the wealth, what used to be called third world countries, now called developing countries. They are no longer satisfied as if they were before. It was more so of a forceful kind of deal, but they are standing up and saying to the developed countries, the rich countries of the world, the US and their friends, you will not continue to enrich yourselves while doing so off the backs of us through colonialism, through military means, extermination, decimating entire places, stealing their oil and resources and all the rest of it that we've seen happen throughout history. And things are taking a new turn. And things like the war in Ukraine and the situation surrounding Taiwan with the Chinese and the US trying to stop the growth of China, banning technologies and trying to stop what they're currently doing with the chips and everything else. This is all maneuvers and just a place that is flailing about trying to prevent such a thing like a new international economic order from happening. I'll try to link below the actual text from the resolution so that you can read it. It's pretty good stuff, but I'd like to read to you one sentence from it that I think sums it up pretty well and sums up this video pretty well. And I quote, "Bearing in mind the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, to promote the economic advancement and social progress of all peoples. I think that it's extremely safe to say that the United States has been against that. And not only are they against that for the people of the international world, but they're against it for the people of their own country. They're against it domestically. The vast majority of people here suffer at the hands of those that hold the most money, power, and authority in this country. And I expect that trend to continue.